Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. We're going to give everybody about another minute. Thank you for everybody that was really early in joining. We're going to jump on in about a minute. A few kind of like process things here. There's a Q&A panel that you can use to ask questions. I will answer questions as we go, but I'll also spend a little bit of time at the end answering any questions that I wasn't able to answer. This session is being recorded and will be available on the Splunk Community Tech Talks page. So feel free if you want to share it with some colleagues or want to rewatch it, you will have the ability. So once again, we're going to give it another 45-ish seconds before we get kicked off here. For the few people that have just joined, there was like a big uptick in attendees here. We're just going to give it another probably 30 seconds or so, and we're going to get started. Okay, it's probably good. So let's get started. So today we are going to talk about mastering threat hunting, indicators versus behavior-based threat hunting in Splunk with Recorded Future. I am Chris Coburn. I actually work for Recorded Future. Recorded Future is Splunk's Technology Innovator Partner of the Year for 2024. And at Recorded Future, I'm the Principal Tech Alliance Architect. So I do solution architecture and design when it comes to all things alliances at Recorded Future, including our partnership with Splunk. So I kind of joke every day that I don't actually work for Recorded Future. I work for Splunk. But I'm the subject matter expert when it comes to kind of everything Recorded Future and Splunk put together. What we're going to cover today. So we're going to cover the core concepts of cyber threat hunting. So what does it mean to be a threat hunter? What's the difference between, doing alert triage and threat hunting? The core differences between indicator and behavior-based threat hunting. What a Sigma rule is and how, you as an organization or you as a threat hunter can utilize the Sigma framework to do threat hunting. And then I'm going to show you what threat hunting looks like with Recorded Future threat intelligence. Okay, so building the slides for this session, I can't do anything without ChatGPT at this point, and so I was like, I wonder what ChatGPT says when you ask it to describe what cyber threat hunting is, and it said maybe the most perfect answer I could possibly provide. Cyber threat hunting is a proactive process where security teams actively search for hidden threats or malicious activity within an organization's network, rather than waiting for automated alerts. It involves analyzing indicators of compromise, attack behavior, and leveraging threat intelligence to detect and mitigate advanced or persistent threats. I mean, I couldn't have provided that answer without ChatGPT. It's pretty perfect, and it kind of frames exactly what I want to talk about today. So let's start with indicator versus behavior-based threat hunting, right? A lot of people think threat hunting is only, doable by the most advanced threat researchers, and all they're looking for are very obscure behavior-based threats. And while that is 100% a valid component of threat hunting, indicator-based threat hunting is still very, very important. So what's the difference? Well, obviously, indicator-based threat hunting is a little easier. And in the next slide, I'm going to show the pyramid of pain. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the pyramid of pain, but I'll show it to you if you had never seen it before. It's much easier to look up an IP address or a hash or domain or URL, especially if you're a strong Splunk user that has very good telemetry coming from your organization's devices, right? So if you have proxy logs and EDR logs and firewall logs and Windows logs and all of these things, you could very easily search for indicators associated to threat actors and malware. Behavior-based threat hunting is quite a bit harder. You need to understand the behavior that specific pieces of malware, specific techniques and procedures, not only what that behavior is, but what that ends up looking like in a log, right? So what are the exact Windows logs that would describe a specific component of a piece of malware or a specific technique and a procedure that a threat actor uses to infiltrate your cloud network. This requires not only phenomenal levels of threat intelligence and understanding of the threat actor or the piece of malware, but also requires an extreme level of skill when it comes to building queries and analyzing data in Splunk. Both can be either proactive or reactive. And I'm going to show this a little bit in the demo later on, but like you don't just have to do reactive threat hunts. You can absolutely build alerting rules within Splunk that say, hey, if I see this behavior, alert me, right? And so that I can then use that threat hunting capability on everything kind of coming into my environment. And obviously there are some, caveats there around performance of queries and all of that kind of stuff, but it is absolutely doable. Indicator-based threat hunting can be run off any log, right? Any log, whether that's, your Zscaler logs, whether that's your API application logs, whether that's, endpoint logs or cloud logs, it doesn't matter. As long as it has an indicator of compromise, IP, domain, hash, URL, you can do a threat hunt against it. And, the interesting thing is, depending on what log source provided that information, you may get dramatically different understandings of what the attack is happening, right? A malicious hash on an endpoint is different than a malicious hash on an email server or on an email ingestion server, right? And so, having that level of context of what logs it coming from, kind of aids in that threat hunt. Behavior-based threat hunts generally, and again, this is generally, there are certainly behavior-based threat hunts for your email servers or your specific endpoint product logs. But generally, if you just rely on other people's threat intelligence, generally you're going to rely on operating system logs, like your Windows logs or your logs from Snare, your Linux logs, your Mac OS logs if you're collecting them somehow, or cloud, right? So whether you're getting your AWS logs out of CloudTrail or something similar out of Azure or GCP, that is where the vast majority of kind of publicly available or commercially available threat intelligence is going to focus on, because that's where you can see the specific behaviors that you want to be hunting. Both heavily rely on external threat intelligence. If you do not understand what the attackers, what the pieces of malware, and what their behaviors are, you have no way of creating threat hunts, right? You can hope that you have some, open source threat intelligence that you might be able to do a little bit of threat hunting with, but your threat hunt is only going to be as good as the threat intelligence you are using to create it, or as good as the threat intelligence that is providing said threat hunt is for you. So I talked about the pyramid of pain. Before we jump into the pyramid of pain here, a question for the audience, and there's quite a few people in the audience. Thank you for attending today. Does your organization leverage threat intelligence today? And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're paying for a commercial feed. You may have threat intelligence analysts that are doing research, but within your organization, would you say that you are leveraging threat intelligence? So I'll give everybody kind of 30 or so seconds to answer that. We're getting some pretty good responses. Nice to see everybody's kind of active and participating this afternoon. Okay, give everybody about 10 more seconds. This is really good, guys. I didn't expect as many people to answer. This is fantastic. All right, so let's the last people pick here. It looks like the vast majority of you are. And you know what? That's exactly what I expect. Obviously, I have a pretty good perspective of this working for a threat intelligence vendor. This probably has been changing for the last few years, right? I would say when I started in the threat intelligence space, it was still relatively niche product that you had to be in an extreme maturity level to take advantage of. Now it's getting to a point where, most organizations need threat intelligence to be able to not only empower the tools, but empower the people that are doing their cyber threat operations, right? And so that's good to see that, the vast majority of people are taking advantage of threat intelligence right now. So the pyramid of pain, I'm sure a few people have seen this. There's possible that a few people, this isn't from Recorded Future, this is kind of like a industry known thing. And the idea of this pyramid of pain is looking at the difference in terms of complexity of hunting for specific components within your environment. And so if we look at hash values, for example, it's pretty trivial, right? First off, hash values are very easy to search for. A lot of different logs and a lot of different applications and stuff produce logs with hash values. They generally don't change. Generally, when a hash is bad, it's always bad forever, right? And so it's pretty easy to hunt for hash, right? So if you get a feed of malicious hashes, you should be able to very quickly build up a KV lookup table, build a query that says, hey, have I seen this hash in any of these log sources or in this data model? If so, tell me about it, right? Pretty easy. IP addresses and domains, also pretty easy. I'd say the complexity there goes, well, one, is it an IPv4 address? Is it an IPv6 address? Is it a fully qualified domain name? Is it just the domain like the word.com? And again, different log sources will do this slightly differently, right? Depends. The other piece of it too is that, and this is a problem when you're generally getting your threat intelligence from open source feeds, is that IP addresses aren't bad forever, right? A threat actor could use an IP address for a short period of time, do the things they need to do, and then release that IP address, and then that IP address may be sold or used by a benign actor, right? And so having the timeliness of that IP address is really important. Network and host artifacts get really tricky, right? So looking for specific signatures in your EDR product, looking for specific network communications across your Windows logs, this can be pretty challenging, of course. In that case, if you are having problems, if you are hunting for network and host artifacts, you need to be kind of on this all the time, and you need to depend on extremely good threat intelligence. Tooling, even harder. The threat actors not only have phenomenal tools, they're changing their tools all the time, and their tooling generally looks like benign, normal things going on in your environment. So looking for the specific, families of Metasploit, looking for the specific stealer malware, gets really, really challenging. They change it up a lot. It acts different on every types of host. It can be very, very, very complicated. Interestingly, just watching the Q&A, the creator of the Pyramid of Pain is in this session. So David, thank you for joining. I hope I'm doing justice to your Pyramid of Pain. We will include that link in the post email. That's awesome. And sorry, I did not include attribution, so that it's attributed to David J. Bianco. And then obviously the last component of it is TTPs, right? So looking at the actual techniques and procedures that a threat actor uses within your environment is going to change depending on the complexity of that threat actor, the maturity of that threat actor, and how they are attacking your environment. Are they a ransomware actor and they're looking to steal data to then ransom to you? Are they looking to lock up your machines? Are they a nation state actor looking to have an idea of what you are doing, whether you're a government entity or a private enterprise? That's a very, very difficult thing to stay on top of, a very difficult thing to hunt for. So how do you go about hunting? So first off, I want to introduce some of you, I'm sure some of you are aware, to the Sigma hunting package format. Again, this is an open source format. This has nothing to do with Recorded Future. Recorded Future just takes advantage of this open source format that is created from a wide variety of submitters and people that add to it. Sigma is a platform agnostic threat hunting package designed for log management and SIMs. So in the same way that a Yara rule or a snort rule works, where a Yara rule is for EDR and snort is for network products, a Sigma rule should be able to be translated to the native query language of an underlying platform like Splunk, and then be used to do that threat hunt within the underlying software. At the moment, there is no official, at least that I'm aware of, and I'm pretty well connected with these teams, there's no official Sigma to Splunk decoder. There are Sigma to Splunk decoders available online. They're just not official Splunk ones. Uncoder.io is a pretty common one. Recorded Future for our Sigma rules uses a somewhat adjusted version of Uncoder. Key thing to bear in mind here, translations are rarely perfect, right? It requires some level of understanding, some level of tuning, and some level of adjusting to your internal environment. Sigma rules are not just invented willy-nilly. They need to be generated by threat intelligence people, whether that is a open source threat intelligence researcher, whether that is a commercially available threat intelligence provider like Recorded Future, whether that is an ISAC threat intelligence. There are a few ISACs that I know of that provide Sigma rules for threat hunting for their customers. So Sigma is great. It allows organizations that may have different underlying log management and SIM providers to be able to work together and build hunting packages that can be worked across the tooling. But again, it's not a perfect solution. It requires a certain amount of adjustment and stuff like that. So when I'm talking about decoder, so there was a question that came in, and I just will answer here. So by decoding, by decoding, I mean a translator. So basically, a Sigma rule needs to be translated into a query, and that query generally in Splunk will be written SPL. So you need some kind of tool that will take the Sigma rule, translate it to SPL, and then you're going to do adjustments to it in the end. So I hope that answers your question, Stephen. So I'm going to jump into a demo here. Before I jump into a demo, I'm just going to talk a little bit about Recorded Future. Some of you on the call may not know who Recorded Future is and where we sit and why someone from Recorded Future is talking to you on a Splunk webinar. But I'll give you guys a little intro to Recorded Future, and then we'll jump into a demo of what an indicator-based threat hunt in Splunk looks like and a Sigma or behavior-based threat hunt looks like. So Recorded Future is the world's largest source of cyber threat intelligence. We've gotten very, very big, very, very quickly. I joined when we were about 400 employees, and now we're 1,000. Not so many years later. We're trusted by 47 sovereign governments, 40 of the global 100, 5 of the largest companies in the world, to be the cyber threat intelligence component of their security operations. So whether that is providing cyber threat intelligence researchers place to do their research, whether that's providing security operations analysts the ability to empower their tools with threat intelligence, governance, risk and compliance, identity, vulnerability, lots of different places. Oh, that question was in the wrong place, but it's all right. We'll ask the question now. So as I was talking about Sigma, have you ever attempted to deploy a Sigma rule within Splunk? How many people here? I would imagine it's not tons and tons and tons. So I'll give another 30 seconds to answer this. If you've ever tried to deploy a Sigma rule, whether that is created by you or created, open source, or from something like a Recorded Future. While you guys are answering that, someone asked, how can Splunk manage Sigma rules? So like I said, at the moment, there is no certified Splunk translator for Sigma. So you would sort of translate the Sigma rule outside of Splunk and then take that query into Splunk to run the query. Certain integrations, like I'm going to show you the Recorded Future integration, handle that for you, that component for you. But generally, if you're just using some like a Sigma rule you found online, you're going to have to do that translation outside of Splunk. Okay, it looks like we got some submissions here. So let's see what the results are. As expected, not a ton of people have deployed a Sigma rule, right? It's sort of at a high level of maturity. And then my next question is really important. So for the ones who have done it, so it was a pretty small amount, but for the ones who have done it, how easy was it to deploy that Sigma rule within Splunk? Okay, I'll give just like a quick 20 or 30 seconds. We have even less people to answer here because so few have deployed a Sigma rule. So again here, if you have deployed a Sigma rule, if you answered yes in the previous question, let me know how easy was it to deploy that Sigma rule. Okay, a few more seconds. Got a few answers, which is all I'm gonna get. So yeah, we got it done, right? It's about as easy as it gets. A vast majority of you are saying, yeah, it was pretty meh, or it was on the hard side. And that's sort of expected, right? I think it's still a pretty young and immature technology or capability or open source framework. I think you're going to see more and more of it over time. And I know for a fact that the product management team within Splunk are looking to build their own Sigma Sigma translator at some point. So I'm sure when they build that out, it's going to become much, much easier. All right, back to Recorded Future. So Recorded Future is the world's largest cyber threat intelligence organization now because of the way we collect our data. So where a lot of threat intelligence vendors are dependent on human researchers, Recorded Future combines human research and machine level collection. So we collect from 1.3 million sources. Those sources include things on the open web, like security blogs and vulnerability disclosures and GitHub repositories, sources on the closed web or the deep web. So things like private Discord servers and Telegram channels and private hacker forums that you need to have a persona to log into. And then on the dark web, we have the largest dark web collection in the world because we maintain so many of these personas that are able to access all of these places where threat actors congregate and talk about their different attacks. So we collect all of that data, we apply natural language processing, ontology analysis, and entity relationship mapping, and that's what generates the intelligence graph, our corpus of threat intelligence that we make available to our customers across a multitude of different use cases. So I'm not going to go into super deep detail on this slide, but we're using this threat intelligence to solve many, many outcomes for our customers. Automating security workflows, which is a little bit what we're talking about today. So like empowering a tool like Splunk with threat intelligence so that you can make your decisions faster. Preventing digital risk, whether that's risk to your brand or people within your brand. Mitigating ransomware is a huge focus of Recorded Future. So understanding the ransomware actors and the pieces of malware they use. Mitigating supply chain risk. Everybody knows that you can have as good borders as possible in cybersecurity, but all it takes is a SolarWinds attack to absolutely cripple you, right? And so understanding the risk that your supply chain is providing, and then managing exposures. We have the largest database of leaked credentials in the world. So, Okta's CEO, at RSA said we're in the post-threat actor authorized world now. So because your organization is leaking credentials, you can get on top of that, reset those credentials, reimage those machines before the threat actors are able to act on that leaked identity. Within Splunk, Recorded Future has multiple integrations. We integrate into Splunk Enterprise or Enterprise Security if you're a customer of Enterprise Security, including the risk-based alerting framework, which I'm not going to be able to demo today, but if you have any questions about what we do with risk-based alerting or how we integrate with ES, you certainly can reach out to us. There'll be some documentation at the end. We integrate with Splunk SOAR. We're big fans of SOAR tools, and so a lot of what you see within our native integration within Splunk Enterprise is also available to be done automatically with Splunk SOAR. And then we also integrate with Splunk Threat Intelligence Management, which has now been a little bit combined with Splunk ES8 into kind of the mission control and overarching security architecture. Specifically with enterprise and enterprise security, we're doing three major things. We are doing correlation. So we are taking large lists of indicators, putting them into lookup tables within Splunk. And so you can build rules that say, hey, if I see an IP address that exists within this list of known bad IP addresses, alert me. It's very simple, but it's very, very important. It dramatically lowers your mean time to detection and generally will detect things that you would not have detected to begin with. We also do enrichment, right? So whether you got an alert from Recorded Futures data or you got an alert from some other tool, if you need more information about an IP address, a hash, a URL, a vulnerability, a piece of malware, Recorded Future gives you that ability to do the enrichment and get all the information you can need right there within Splunk. And that's a tremendous value in terms of lowering your mean time to response. Now, as a SOC analyst, even like a lower level alert triage guy, you can quickly say, hey, what is this external IP address? I've never seen it before. Oh, Recorded Future says it's an actively communicating C2 server. I know what I need to do. I need to raise this up. I need to, do whatever your business rules force you to do. And then the third thing, which is what we're talking about today, is threat hunting. So I won't dive too deep into that. I'm not going to dive too deep in this in slides since I'm just going to show it to you in a demo. But those are available to you, and you will have access to these slides after the fact. So let's jump into a demo. So I'm going to share this screen. Okay. So What we're looking at right now is the native integration of Recorded Future within Splunk. So this integration exists on Splunk base, and it is available to any kind of mutual customer of Recorded Future, assuming you have the right underlying permissions. And so again, this integration has kind of three major use cases: the correlation, the enrichment, and the threat hunting. I'm only going to focus on the threat hunting today. If you want to see a demo or any kind of information about the other capabilities, please follow the links that you're going to get at the end of this session, and you can see, walkthrough demo videos and all kinds of stuff. So from a threat hunting perspective, the first thing you need to make as a decision of as a threat hunter is, what am I going to threat hunt for? And this is something that Recorded Future helps you with. So what I'm looking at here is called the malware threat map. And what the malware threat map is a look at all of the pieces of malware, and we kind of chart it based on its capability to attack you, or its opportunity to attack you. So how effective is that piece of malware against your tech stack, against the vulnerabilities you have in your environment, about, based on everything Recorded Future knows about you as a company, how capable is that piece of malware? And then on the y-axis, what is the prevalence of this piece of malware? Not just generally or globally, but how prevalent is it in your geolocation? How prevalent is it in your industry? How prevalent is it in a company of your size and of your draw, if you will? If you're a very large, well-known enterprise, or if you're a small or less known enterprise, how does that impact it? Now, this is a demo environment, so it's got tons and tons and tons and tons of stuff in it. But if I look at it, pretty quickly, you can see that some of the top ones, and the top ones are kind of listed here, are Remcoast Rat, XM Rig Miner, Luma C2, Redline Stealer, Steel C, Xworm. To be honest, I want to be the guy that names all of these because they give them such ridiculous names. Recorded Future also has threat maps for threat actors. So if you're not only concerned about the specific pieces of malware, but the specific threat actors, that's also available if you're a Recorded Future customer. So specifically, what if I want to learn more about Redline Stealer? So Redline Stealer is one of my top 5 kind of pieces of malware here. So what I can do is I can click Enrich Malware. Now, to save myself an API call and some loading time, I've already loaded this. And so what happens when you enrich it is it brings up the malware enrichment page, which is basically an on-demand call to Recorded Future's API. And it has everything we know about Redline Stealer available to you right here within Splunk. Again, I have not pivoted away from Splunk. I'm not pivoting into Recorded Future. All of this information that you could possibly need is right here within Splunk. So before I dive into these indicators that you see at the top, you can see the first thing that we provide to you is INSIT group notes. So our INSIT group is our human research team that creates finished intelligence. So you as a threat actor, if you want to learn more about Redline Stealer and what it is and why it exists and what it's been doing, you have a ton of finished intelligence that you can sit here and read, right? So if you're trying to learn more about something, or if CISO or something, as someone asks you about the risk of this piece of malware, you can come and learn more. And there's tons and tons and tons of human research to read here. We also have this idea of links, and links are verified relationships between an entity and another entity within Recorded Future. So in the case of this piece of malware, based on technical data, so based on some technical sourcing, whether that is our malware traffic analysis, our network traffic analysis, our malware sandbox, whatever the case may be, we've associated this piece of malware to a couple domains, a few different hashes, a few different malware signatures, a few different IP addresses, MITRE attack techniques, another piece of malware. And based on human research, we've also associated to more domains and more hashes and more IPs and some attack vectors and some threat actors, etc. And so this is really powerful, right? Because now that I know about Redline Stealer, I can start to sit here and say, okay, well, now maybe I want to learn more about the Bangladesh darknet threat actor, and I can continue to do that research. If I'm lazy, though, and if I'm nothing if not lazy, I could just click this button on the top right and say, hey, perform a threat hunt. And so what I do when I click that button is I basically pick which indicators, which will take all those indicators that you see here, pick which indicators, select which index, which source type, and which event field I want to run that query for, and boom, I just did a 30-day threat hunt in a few clicks. And so that's tremendously powerful, right? For a long time, threat hunting was only available or only the capability of our most advanced people in our SOCs. Now, even a lower level, level 1 SOC analyst can come in here and say, hey, I've seen some indication of red line stealer. Let me see if I can see more indications of red line stealer. If you are a Recorded Future customer and you're just learning to use this, one thing I suggest to everybody is, do one query at a time. Don't try to search for all of the different indicator values at the same time. Like I would do one search for domains and one search for IP addresses, one search for hashes, etc. And then another question that I get very quickly here is that we will be adding support for a data model here. So it won't just be index, source type, and event field. You will be able to use a data model for this query. Okay, so what does this end up looking like? And so I think someone ran a red line test recently, and they did. So if I look at the results here, so this is the end result. Oh, maybe not that one, maybe the other one. Got a level live demo. This one. Got a level live demo. There we go. So here is the result of this query. So I ran a query, and in fact, within my Splunk environment, I saw 2 different IP addresses associated to this piece of malware. So if I click here, I can learn more about this indicator. So this is, again, the enrichment capability of Splunk, of our Recorded Future Splunk integration. Again, tremendous amounts of information, associated hashes, MITRE ATT&CK techniques, pieces of malware, an AI insight. So if you don't want to read the rest of it, you can just read the kind of chat GPT summary of it. But every bit of information that you could possibly need to know about that indicator, if that's what you want. But a key thing here is that in that threat hunt, again, what I really care about, well, what was the log itself that triggered this threat hunt? And in the case here, it's a NetScreen firewall log. And now I know that the source IP is 10.1.244.13. I can start looking internally to understand, well, what is that host? Why is that host communicating out to IP address known to be C2 servers for Redline Stealer, etc. Right? So we've kind of discovered the things you need to do, and now you, as a threat hunter, can continue that query to understand the impacts and the what's going on internally. Okay, and so that's how you would do an indicator-based threat hunt with Recorded Future. And again, you do not need to depend on this threat hunt button. Obviously, every time I look at an IP address, if you look at this one, for example, if I look at an IP address or a piece of malware or whatever, there are tons of things that I could start querying for, right? I could look at for each and every one of these hashes now if I really wanted to. Okay. So that's indicator-based threat hunting. Let's look at behavior-based threat hunting. So again, if you go into configuration and look at Sigma rules, you can see that Recorded Future provides Sigma rules directly into Splunk. And again, these 309 rules, and these are getting updated all the time, are created by our research team and are brought in automatically into your Splunk environment if you have the Recorded Future app, and are translated automatically into SPL queries for you to then either run retroactively, so looking at a very long period of time backwards, or you can configure it to kind of look forward at all new logs coming in. Now, if I look at the product, you can see that the vast majority of our Sigma rules are dependent on Windows logs. So hopefully you as an organization are collecting all of the logs from the different Windows devices in your environment, because this is sort of what a lot of these Sigma rules, at least from Recorded Future, but I know for a fact that a lot of them outside of Recorded Future are also looking across Windows logs. But we do have some for Linux, and we do have some for the different cloud providers. So what do these end up looking like? So I'll see if I have one configured here. I do. So here is one where we are looking for ransomware shadow copy manipulations. So detects common ransomware shadow copy manipulations based on Armor Research. Families observed using this technique are Dharma, Eternity, Black Basta, and MacOp. You can look at the search, right? So this is the actual search. This is the source and event fields that it's trying to match. And again, this is we're getting you 85% of the way there. It's now on you to kind of make sure that you adjust this and tweak this to work well in your environment. You may have some slightly weird mappings in your Windows events, and you may need to adjust this to work specifically in your environment. but it should generally be 80% of the way there. And we've done the hard part of analyzing these types of behaviors so that it's already there ready for you. And again, if you run this query, we will show you what this, with this Sigma rule, or we'll show you what the threat hunt, we'll show you the logs that match the behaviors associated to ransomware shadow copy manipulations. Okay, so that's what I had for the demo. I'm sure there's a few questions. Let me swing back in here. So let me go to the next slide here. So Q&A time. So one question that came in is, does Recorded Future have sticks and taxi CTI services? If yes, is there a test version? So we do have a sticks and taxi capability. So if you choose to not use one of our native applications and you just want to ingest our data via sticks and taxi, is absolutely available. There's not a test version per se. You can certainly talk to Recorded Future about getting, going through a proof of value concept or what have you to see it. There is, in fact, a test version if you want to test the app within Splunk. So if you would like to test for 30 days our integration into Splunk with all of the data connected to it as if you were a full Recorded Future customer, you absolutely can do that. And there's a link to that in the materials that will come that will come after this call. If anybody else has any other questions, I think I answered most of them as time went on, but if anybody else has any other questions, I'll give 30 seconds to a minute for you to throw one into the chat bot, or into the chat, sorry. Out of the list of Sigma rules that you have within the app, do you have tags or classification to show relevance to retail, financial, telecom domain? No, in fact. So while we do help you analyze what pieces of malware and what threat actors you should be focused on within your specific domain, we do not limit the Sigma rules to the underlying domain. Generally, those Sigma rules are either associated to a threat actor's behavior or a piece of malware's behavior, and you sort of have to make that connection between Recorded Future saying, hey, this is the piece of malware you should be concerned about, to, hey, this is the Sigma rule you should run for that piece of malware. Great question, though. Okay, there's a question about, does AI change the accessible TTP shifts from attackers? Absolutely, right? With AI, threat actors are changing their techniques and procedures every second of every day. And so we, as a threat intelligence company, are doing our absolute best to stay on the bleeding edge of it. But what we're seeing is, on the most part, the core things that have been working for a long time, they continue to use. So stealer malware, ransomware, variants like Cobalt Strike continue to be the most prevalent things we are seeing. What we're seeing, though, is like nation state persistent threat actors. Their techniques and procedures are changing every second of every day. Every attack we see from Chinese nation state actors, Russian nation state actors seems to be slightly different and much harder to keep track of. So absolutely, we're trying to use AI to keep up with their AI at this point. Great question, though. Do you provide Splunk detections for each MITRE ATT&CK technique? Not every single one. There are a lot of MITRE ATT&CK techniques, but we certainly cover the wide gamut of MITRE ATT&CK techniques that, the typical threat, like the typical entry point or the typical kind of in the middle of the attack, like when they're within an environment and starting to spread out with east-west traffic or starting to kind of lock up machines, is where we start to detect. But there are, MITRE ATT&CK techniques like around like mobile device integration and stuff that we, just don't have a threat hunting package for right now. Great question, though. Okay, any other questions? If there are other questions, feel free to throw them in the Q&A before we kind of close out, and then we can follow up after the fact. Okay, so additional resources, you will get access to this. So there's a question. Yes, there are racetracks behind me. One of them is the Nürburgring. I'm a big race car guy. I have a racing simulator sitting next to me, but good question. So additional resources. So Sigma, if you want to contribute to the Sigma project or you want to learn more about the Sigma project, this is their GitHub GitHub page. Their documentation is very good. It's a really great group of folks that build that. I am going to add a link to the Pyramid of Pain documentation that was kindly passed along to us by David. So that'll get added here. And then there's some information from Recorded Future if you're interested. Again, this is more about learning about threat hunting than Recorded Future. But if you do want to learn more about Recorded Future, we have a homepage. I have a link to our integrations on Splunkbase. And then if you're interested, there is a free trial. feel free to click on the free trial to get more information and to try it out. It's actually pretty sweet. 30 days to try it out. Cool. I think that's everything. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any questions. Feel free to check out any of this stuff. And this session will be recorded and available on the community. There are more community things that you can join. There's office hours and answers and other tech talks, and you can submit ideas and vote on ideas and stuff like that. Oh, another question came in. Recorded Future is a cloud-based app. Yeah, so Recorded Future was cloud native as it began, so there is no on-premise support for Recorded Future. It's all available through our SaaS platform. Okay, so I think that's everything. I think we're going to leave it open for a few more seconds. Again, find me on LinkedIn, add me. I'm super happy to answer anything via LinkedIn. And outside of that, have a good rest of the week. For the Americans, have a good Thanksgiving next week. And we'll chat, hopefully get a chance to do this again.